Hello and greetings to you out in YouTube land. Thanks for tuning in for another one of my Journeys with Jack travel logs. I'm going to speak about Sardinia today, and as always, in my low-tech method, I will have photographs matched up of Sardinia on Instagram and Facebook. Same channel name, Journeys with Jack. So first thing, I got a map behind me. This is from a souvenir towel I bought while I was there. Hey, came in handy. We went to the beach a lot. So if you look over here, this is kind of rudimentary, but hopefully I can get the microphone as I'm doing this. Down here at the bottom is Cagliari. That is the capital. That's where the main airport is. There's another airport up here in the Costa Esmeralda around Porto Cuervo. And then, great city to go visit is over here on the northwest coast, Alghero. We basically went all the way around the island. We came into Cagliari, came up here laid up, went over there to Alghero, across the north coast, down to Calagonone, through the interior, all the way down to the bottom at Bahia Chia. So I'm going to talk about that experience. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, Sardinia, great food, great beaches. The food you would expect, good Italian pasta and bread. You also get excellent Italian seafood. Lots of interesting things, octopus, cuttlefish, etc. And then you get some interior game like wild boar stew we had in Santa Teresa Galera. And then you also have the opportunity to see some interesting historical cultural artifacts, such as in the city of Alghero from the Catalan times. Also, there is a ziggurat dating back to about 4000 BC, built by the Oziri people, it's thought. Otherwise, you're not going to find a ziggurat in Europe. You have to go to Iraq, Iran, maybe Egypt, or Tikal, Guatemala. There's also several prehistoric dwellings called Nuragi, dating from the Nuragic people around 1800 BC. There's a great collection of these with a hefty tourist price to go see the Nuragic village. But why do that? You can see them for free along many of the roadways throughout the country. So let's talk about Sardinia. So we flew in from Atlanta through Amsterdam. I love going through the Amsterdam airport. Why? Because they don't have rails about every 3 feet or so on their benches. There are no rails. You can lie down. You can get a nap. It's lovely. Same thing when you're flying out of Cagliari. You can lay down and get a nap in the morning, which was good because we flew home rather early and went through Rome on the way back to Atlanta this way. So once we landed, we went straight away, got our rental car, a little Renault Clio with air conditioning. You want air conditioning when you're there in the summer. Trust me, it is very warm. So we took off in our baby blue Renault Clio on 131A and went up and laid up in the town of Arboris, very beautiful town on the west coast of Sardinia. And as you might expect with a town, there's lots of trees. There's a tree-lined boulevard into the town, hence the name. We stayed at a great hotel called Il Caneto, had wonderful eggplant for dinner along with, you guessed it, some octopus and some calamari. So the next morning we continued on up towards Alghero, and we stopped in at lovely town Bosa. Bosa is along the Timo River. The Timo is the only navigable river in Sardinia, and that's why a town grew up around there. Bosa is famous for its old castle, old bridge, and beautiful pastel-colored houses. You come over a small mountain and descend into a valley, and from the side of the road we pulled off and looked down at the beautiful pastel houses, came in, toured through the town and the bridge, and then went up to the Savarli castle. I'm going to recommend that you drive as far as you can up the hill to the castle and then get out and walk, because it is a hike. But boy, is it worth it. The views are stunning. Please see the photographs on Instagram, etc. Carrying on from Bosa, we drove into Alghero a little bit later that afternoon. Alghero is somewhat of a unique city in that it has a very Catalonian Spanish flavor. In fact, it's called Little Barcelona. Why? Well, it had been colonized by Catalonians, and so to this day, the crest of Alghero features yellow and red coloring, similar to the football crest of the famous Barcelona soccer team. Now there's a piazza on the edge of the town by the seawall, beautiful place with old catapults and stone balls that I guess were launched from the catapult as a means of defense. There's also many different little coves close to the town, one right across from our hotel. Our hotel was the Il Balar Hotel, just on the edge of the old city, probably about a 5-minute walk or less to the piazza. Very convenient. We could go through the piazza, do our thing, and then late in the afternoon have a good swim at that cove and then into the hotel for dinner, as we did on occasion. So another advantage of this hotel was that there was a mercati. Mercati is Italian for market, similar to like mercado in Spanish, right around the corner. And that's where you want to go to buy things like the towel that I mentioned earlier, or get some beach chairs there, your sunscreen, water, Coke, beer, etc. You can get a disposable cooler. We did all that and carried it around the car with us off and on at different beaches, because you're going to buy a beach chair and use it many different days for less than what you can really rent one for just one day. So the best beach I found in the Alghero area is called Spiaggia Maria de Pia. And this is just north of the town and has free parking across the road from the I guess National Park area near the beach. You walk through a stand of pine trees and over a dune, and there you are at the beach, and it's gorgeous. There are many different shacks and restaurants around different spots on the beach, so easy to get a drink and a meal there. Lots of stuff for kids to do. There was a whole set of beach ride type things, amusement park for kids at one end of the beach. What I liked the best about it was that it was very calm in the morning and very clear water, easy swimming. I swam out very deep and just had a great swim 2 different days. And so as the wind would kick up with the waves and the surf later in the day, we would go do some sightseeing, and on one of those days we drove about 25 kilometers over to Monte di Cato. Monte di Cato is where the ziggurat is located, and it's a €5 admission fee to come into the park, and you can walk up to the top of the ziggurat. Yes, that's right. You can climb up a pyramid. Now, it's not overly tall, but it's really cool. Nothing like it that I've ever seen. So they also have a thing called a teal stone, which is some type of religious significance from that ancient culture, and that's off to the side of the pyramid. Again, please see the photographs on Instagram. Continuing on from Monte di Cato, there's another noteworthy site, a little bit later era in history, going from about 4000 BC to about 1100 BC, is the Santisima de Saccarisia Trinita. Now, Santisima Saccarisia Trinita, you can guess that's Sanctuary of the Trinity or Basilica of the Trinity, but the part that's funny is the Saccarisia refers to spotted cow, and apparently there was some type of spotted cow that for whatever reason would kneel down in this area where they built a church. So the church is a black and white motif using black basalt interspersed with grayish limestone to create stripes around the pillars of the building, etc. And then there is some motif around the entranceway of the building that is a carving of cows. Most unusual. There's a restaurant nearby, also called Saccarisia, up on a hill where we stopped and had pizza and eggplant again and some calamari. And you can look down on the beautiful church in the distance. Inside the church, gorgeous frescoes of Jesus, the apostles, etc. Very ancient, very beautiful. So Alghero, loved the town, loved the environment. We finally ended our few days in Alghero, got up one morning, went to Mass at the local church, and then got on the road around the north coast, stopping at a couple of beaches along the way until we pulled into the town of Casalardo. Casalardo is the most picturesque town on the north coast, in my opinion. So it has beautiful old buildings and a little beach there, but really the showstopper is the Castillo Doria, which was built between about 1100 and 1250 and is a Romanesque style architecture castle. So that means it has these really fascinating arches. Now the Romans are the ones that gave us the arch, and there were no arched bridges until the Romans built them. And then it was elaborated upon such that there are interlocking arches on Romanesque churches and castles. Now they're a little bit on the squat side because they could only bear so much weight. And if you'll notice later, cathedrals were much taller, but they would have these things that pointed out on the sides, flying buttresses, and that would take the weight. So that was an architectural improvement as time went on. So subsequent to seeing the Castle Doria at Castellardo, which I highly recommend, we carried on along the coast to Santa Maria Galera. And Santa Maria Galera is a jumping off spot if you're going to take the ferry across to Corsica. You might recall that I did a former travel log on Corsica, so look back through YouTube. It's called Corsica, of course, and we came by ferry into Bonifacio. I won't cover all the ferry trip now. Suffice it to say, Corsica is awesome too. But we returned by ferry into Santa Maria Galera and carried on up the coast. But before I depart Santa Maria Galera, I want to give you a little tourist tip. The beach is free after 6 p.m. Before 6 p.m. it's €9. It's a great beach. I snorkeled there, swam there, saw a giant flounder, a bunch of other colorful fish. It's beautiful. The area has a lovely old town and a great restaurant called Chapara, where we had wild boar stew. It was delicious. Highly recommend it. So carrying on from Santa Teresa Galera, come around the north coast to the area of the La Maddalena Island Archipelago. La Maddalena actually is the name for 3 places: the main town on those islands, the main island, and the archipelago. The only 2 islands with any substantial population being Maddalena and Caprera. Caprera is reached from Maddalena across a very narrow bridge and is well worth going to. It has an excellent network of trails through the rugged cliffs and mountains, and then a whole collection of lovely beaches, all national park area. And it also had the retirement home of the George Washington figure of Italy, Giuseppe Garibaldi. He is called the hero of 2 worlds. He was a general who led the unification of Italy and also later went over to Peru to fight the War of Independence against the Spanish successfully. He was noted for wearing a bright red shirt into battle, and many of his men did likewise, hence they were called Garibaldi and the Red Shirts. Logical enough, I suppose. And his home is a collection of muskets, swords, other militaria. But one of the things I found the most interesting were the stables and all the antique horse tack and other tools used in farming there. His tomb is nearby to the stable, well worth the time to see, and you can read about this famous man and those many accomplishments. Now, to get over to the La Maddalena Archipelago, you have a drive-on ferry. It runs every hour. It takes about 20 minutes to get over, 20 minutes to get back, and then time to load and unload. Now, in La Maddalena, great town, we stayed in an apartment. Worked out well. It was a little dodgy getting the key at first, but we were able to get some people to help us call, and it worked out well. While we were there, one of the breakers went awry, and we lost some power in part of the apartment. One of the neighbors, Luca, called the landlord, flipped the breaker, helped us out, and then later we saw him the next day at the beach, Bosa Trinita, which was the best beach, in my opinion, on La Maddalena. So it's kind of cool to see the neighbor there at the beach subsequently. Now, let's talk about that beach a minute. So that beach at La Maddalena, you drive along a road out of town, and you'll see cars parked all over the place at the upper levels of the road, and then you have to hike down some stairs and along a winding path, and you reach the beach. It has 2 different coves. One is Piccoletta, i.e. small, and one is Grande, so it makes sense. And then off of the beach, if you swim out far enough, about 250 yards or so, are some rocky outcrop islands, and I did it. It was fun. It's pretty deep, probably I'd estimate maybe 50, 75 feet, but you can see almost all the way down because the water's so clear. So well worthwhile. Now, it was fairly crowded with Italian tourists. It's very popular. We really did not see many Americans or other Europeans